Contra-Dictions, episode 29. Welcome to your evening. My name is Larkwood. I am your guest host tonight. I am not going to lean right. I'm not going to lean left. I'm going to try to do my best to stay in the middle. I'm not wearing red. I am kind of wearing blue, but just like think of me as purple. I'm not leaning anywhere tonight, but tonight is all going to be about Miss Harris, whose first name I'm not even going to attempt to say, because apparently there's already controversy on how to say possibly the future vice president's name. I remember how big of a deal when it was Terrell Owens or Terrell Owens. Not even going down that road right now. Gentlemen.
It was Kamala at one point, and I thought it was Kamala. It would have been simple, but Kamala is what I think Joe Biden said earlier.
It is emphatically not Camilla, which is what I would have said. But I would have been wrong.
I was Kamala, like the Ugandan Kamala giant. Remember, what's funny is the Ugandan giant's name was Kamala Harris, which is just funny.
So instead of a koala bear, you have a Kamala bear.
Right, but apparently Tucker Carlson said it wrong and was getting the wrath today. So I guess it's Kamala. Which is funny because they need to update her Wikipedia because her Wikipedia says Kamala. So
I just find it hard to believe that many Democrats were watching Tucker Harris. All right, here we go. Let's get. I almost said Tucker Harris. Yeah. Look, you asked me to come in on short notice. Here we go.
Hey,
all right.
Way to stay in the middle. I like that. Way to stay in the middle. Tucker Harris.
I'm going to do my best.
Next time I'm going to go to the bar and order a Miller Adams.
Light.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to start diving into questions and we're going to go back and forth. And I just want to hear what you guys have to say. There's been zero show prepping on this. So you guys might have the same views and this could get real boring real quick. But obviously with the new announcement of Miss Harris going to be the VP nominee under Mr. Biden, the first question I have, and she is a former district attorney, right? And the Democratic movement right now and this election is going to be very it's going to hinge on the minority vote and the BLM movement. And having a person that was a part of a system that is being considered a systemic racism is a problem in the country. That's one of the contentions of the BLM movement. And she was literally a part of said system. Now, I'm not indicting her personally on her character. I'm just simply pointing out that there is a BLM movement that says there is systemic racism. She was a district attorney, which inherently makes her a part of said system. Do you think, and elaborate on your thoughts, please, because it'll fill up more time. Do you think that undercuts the BLM movement within the Democratic Party, having her as the VP candidate? King B, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay. I think it does. Now, I think that with her, it's also her record, though. The fact that she was the enforcer of the three-strike law, which was interesting since it's something that Biden has been highly criticized for, that those different things within the district attorney's responsibilities, when she's asking for certain sentences and when people, there's multiple people who even got found, not guilty or got found guilty later on were found not guilty, and her office did not help them. Instead, they ended up standing in their way, and certain judges criticized both when she was at the district attorney's office and when she was at, and I apologize. Let me go turn that off. Both when she was at the district attorney and when she was the AG at California. So my expectations is that I don't think she'll be held to task for it, but I think the right will bring it up. I'm not sure how much the right can really say when they want harsher crimes, but she's going to start retreading on this stuff, I think, and trying to move backwards on it and try to make excuses and say that she was wrong or she's grown. As long as you're moving towards whatever political party needs you, then they're quick to forgive your indiscretions.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought that up, Kenny, because, I'm kind of wondering as well, too, at this point, is somebody like Kamala Harris, is she really going to begin to kind of go back on the things that she's done in the past just to sort of appease the Democratic Party? I do believe. I mean, this is somebody that was extra tough on marijuana offenders, people that were getting caught for a petty amount of marijuana. She sentenced extra harshly, or she advocated for extra harsh sentencing on marijuana, even after she admitted to smoking it herself. And we could talk about the 3-strike law and and all of the things that she's essentially done to lock up Black people. I do think it is gonna hurt her. But there are some good things as well too. Bringing her on, adding her to the ticket. But yeah, just to answer your question, Lark, I would definitely say it is going to hurt her for sure. It is going to be questioned. It is going to be scrutinized, and it should be. And I just really don't see how her trying. I mean, these are things that she was pretty vocal about too. I mean, Kamala Harris. Yeah, right. Kamala Harris is a pretty outspoken individual. I mean, when she believes in something or when she feels a certain way about something, she doesn't shy away from it. She's had several, not really interviews, but on camera instances of her, advocating for tougher sentencing and things like that. So, it is definitely going to be on the chopping block for sure.
All right. So we all know that every political decision made in an election year is designed to gain votes. Particularly in a presidential election, it's designed to gain electoral votes. Because as many people learned during the Trump and Clinton election, electoral votes matter more than the popular vote. While that's its own subject and conversation for probably 17 episodes of Contra-Dictions, we're going to put that to the side and just take a look at all the rules that all these candidates already know, which is that whoever has the most electoral votes wins. The question I ask is, with Kamala Harris coming from California, a state that was probably going to go Biden's way anyway, does she help Joe Biden gain any electoral votes? Glenn, this time I'll start with you.
Yeah, I do think it still is going to help her get some help him get some electoral votes. Obviously, California, I would definitely venture to say, was going to lean his way as well too. But Kamala Harris is pretty well liked amongst the Democratic Party. I mean, she does have a few people within the party that are, I guess, kind of critics of her. But overall, I mean, all in all, I mean, she's had major wins. I mean, major electoral victories 3 times in the state of California, which is huge. Just in case people don't realize, California is the largest state in the country. Yes, it is bigger than Texas, but she'll be able to raise money as well too, which I think is going to be a very a pivotal thing for the Biden campaign. But yeah, definitely, she's for sure gonna bring some electoral votes from some other states, and I would venture to say Florida probably. Even though Florida is a Republican state, I think that she's going to. There's a lot of Democrats in Florida, and I think that she's surprisingly going to get a lot of votes coming out of that state. And then of course, obviously all of the Democratic or all the blue states as well too, for sure.
The interesting point that you brought up, Glenn, before I go to Kenny, was that the money aspect, because it is interesting because California is a state that is targeted by the donors of campaigns, and for her to be able to get the Democrats of that state that want, let's be honest, more people want Trump out of office than want Biden in office. I mean, that's not. I don't feel like I'm leaning too far one direction to say that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more votes against Trump than for Biden. And to be able to get the donors, to be able to get the ads to help with California, while maybe not a swing state, the money that comes out of California might help in a state like I live in, Pennsylvania. We are most certainly a battleground swing state. And so, they'll be targeting, the Democrats will be targeting Pittsburgh and Philadelphia hard, and the Trump campaign will be targeting everything in the middle. Kenny, I'll come to you first. What do you think the impact of Ms. Harris has for electoral votes?
Okay. So, well, first of all, I just want to get the first win of the day over Glennon, because the largest state is Alaska. But I'm sure he meant
Electoral.
Yeah, you ain't coming and interrupting with Alaska as the biggest state. I'm just dropping the intro, cut you off. I'm going to let you start over. Don't drop Alaska's the biggest state in a serious political conversation.
I mean, it is. It's not the most important.
Let's start over. Kenny, do you believe that Ms. Harris
So I'm going to tell you why I don't think it helps her very much. I don't think it helps her very much because one of the things that Biden did, and it might be smart in the long game, but he went and got somebody that's pretty much politically aligned with him in the electoral, or in the vice president, or sorry, in the Democratic the Jim. Sorry. So in the Democratic candidate.
All right, take three.
All right. So here's how this is going to work. Okay, in the Democrat presidential debates, okay, Biden and her were going at each other. The reason they were going at each other was because they were very closely aligned. Okay, she is not on the leftist to the measure of of Pocahontas or Bernie Sanders. She's not on that edge of the Democratic Party. And so I think I just don't know if that helps her really get some of the middle lane voters, because I feel like most of those middle lane voters are going to go to Biden anyways. If you voted for Kamala Harris, a lot of those voters would go Biden if they didn't, if she hadn't won, and if they were going to go with her or him. So I'm just not sure how much she picks up there. I don't think she helps in Florida. I know that they want to get a block of voters that they didn't get before, and they're hoping, I think the reason he went with her is because they were hoping to get the black vote. Now, I think it was smart that he went with a person of color, and we can have a discussion on because all the different things about African-American or whatnot, and she's not really African-American, but being a person of color, or whatever the term is you want to use it, they want to get that block of voters. I'm not sure that block of voters is going to be as effective as they were hoping for, because right now the Black Lives Matter movement is such a powerful movement, and that movement is going to come with votes. And those votes, although they may go against Trump, I don't know that she brings anyone extra to the table.
Hold on, Glenn. The one thing that people got to remember when it comes to the election is it's not about finding people that, if they had to vote between this person and this person, who are they going to pick, right? And that's the one thing that polling screws up. And if there's anything from the Clinton versus Trump election that we learned, is that polling does not equate to votes, because it's not about finding people that will change their mind and agree with you and vote for you. It's about motivating the people that already agree with you to show up and vote. And so the question here is does she help inspire the minority vote to show up at the polls? That's really what the question does. Does she do that? And I believe that the answer is probably yes. That and Kenny, it's easy. And I'm a white dude, so I'm gonna say this to another white dude. It's easy for us as white dudes to get caught up saying she's not African American, but it's not called African American Lives Matter. It's called Black Lives Matter, and she does fit the mold of a person of color who will help that.
She doesn't align with the Black Lives Matter movement. And so that's what I'm talking about. I just don't see that movement all of a sudden pushing her. It's going to be very counter to their main points.
See, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kenny, because this is what I want to talk about, because this is where it gets interesting with black people in general, with not only the Democratic Party, but just with black people, because you're right. Her stance on things, she doesn't really align with the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of her policies don't align with the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of her past actions don't align with the Black Lives Matter movement. However, the simple fact that she is the first African-American female on the national ticket, it's unfortunate, but it's going for, I think, for black people, and especially for people of the Black Lives Matter movement, it's going to wash a lot of that away, and they're just going to automatically accept her. And I wanted to talk about that because I don't really think that is the way to go. Kind of like, I think that going with a black person, whether male or female, probably was a good thing. But the person that's best suited for the job, I think, is who we should go for. And a lot of times it's a black person. It could be an Indian person, an Asian person, whatever. But I think definitely just to sort of make a statement and break up the status quo. That was the reason why he did that in the climate that we're in today. But Kamala Harris, and also too, I just wanted to touch on in terms of her being African American or not, I mean, her mother is Native American or indigenous American, and her father is Jamaican.
No. Her mother's Indian.
Okay.
Both ways.
Okay.
Dad
That's what I thought too. And then I was just talking to somebody, and they were like, "No, they're American Indian." I was like, "No, they're Indian." Well, cool. So I should have just
look with the shirt that you have on. I can see how you would get that wrong.
And look, and to me, I guess the thing is that
she was born in Oakland, California. I mean, if she
a very wealthy parents.
For sure.
So Biden came out and said that, she talks about this 3 a.m. where she's standing in the, some parents are staying in the kitchen at 3 a.m. discussing how they're going to make their bills. Well, her dad was a professor at Stanford, a professor of economics, a doctor. Her mom was a doctor at UC Berkeley. If they're sitting in the kitchen figuring out how to make sure Kamala's got new shoes, then the rest of us are doomed forever.
Yeah, they're probably not doing it personally, but this is the thing too. People say things, and that could be true in some instances, Kenny, but it's a very kind of blanket statement. I don't think most Americans are kind of living in this bubble to where if they're making a 6-figure salary or even a 7-figure salary, that they can't empathize or understand with somebody that may be up at 3 a.m. wondering if their kids are going to get
California is a very expensive place to live.
If that is true, then that debunks pretty much the whole leftist narrative. The whole point in Black Lives Matter is that white people aren't understanding because they're not in that situation. It's the same thing. If economically you can't understand, then that kind of just, I like that point. I'm not saying they can't.
And I will say this, Kenny, to speak from the middle while you're clearly leaning a little bit more than a little right on this. Does that matter? Does that matter to a person? Hold on. Does that matter when understandably a woman of color is going to be sitting one seat away from becoming president to a man that, if he were to be elected, is at an age where the odds of her taking over that office, and even let's just pretend that he doesn't have anything fatal happen to him at that age, and I'm not wishing that on him, obviously. It's just a possibility that has to be talked about. That's why we have a vice president. But
he brought it up.
Right. So even if that doesn't happen, it's still a fast track to being the next front runner candidate to becoming, her own candidate for the White House. Do you think that actually matters to a person of color to say, oh, well, she was born wealthy? I don't personally think it does. I think that I believe they will relate and say somebody that looks like me, and more importantly, somebody that looks like my child has a shot at being in the White House. And I believe that it's going to change the vote. I'll let you reply. Okay.
And I think that's actually more right wing than what I'm saying, because that's saying that you're going, I'm black, I'm gonna vote for this person because this person's black, and they're a female, and so they might be the first person to be over there. That's solely based on race. I just don't work that way. So for me, I think I'm very middle of the line here, that I think that there are people, I think black people are not a monolith. I think they're going to look at the candidate, and I do think something's going to matter if they want a candidate that goes, can this person... Here's the thing. It's not even whether that person can relate to them or not. It's just when you're hearing this side versus this side, it just means that she can't say that. She can't say Donald Trump's out of touch, but I know you because no, you don't. You're no closer to me economically than they are. So you're both even ground there. So now I'm just looking for the best candidate. And I'm thinking that the vast majority of people that are undecided are actually going to look at the topics one by one and go, does this person represent the views that I want for this country or not? My hope is it doesn't happen because she could be the first black woman. I don't care. Now, yes, I'm white, so I can say that. But I voted for black people before it was cool to vote for black people. The first person I ever voted for was a black person because I wanted them to be president, not because they were black. And so maybe I'm naive, maybe more people. And I know that some people certainly do vote with color. It's the reason why there was so many more black people that voted when Obama came. And I talked to a lot of people who behind closed doors are like, I'm voting for him regardless. He's black, I'm black, I'm doing it. And I mean, I can understand that. I just would rather a far more qualified person. We talked about it before. If you ask me who I'm a bigger fan of, Susan Rice or Kamala Harris, I already said that. Last week I said that. I thought Susan Rice should have been the pick. So this would probably be more biased because I thought Susan Rice was a better selection. It's not anti-Kamala, but I just hope people can pick outside.
Glenn, go ahead and reply.
Sure. And I just want to just kind of state, I like Kamala Harris to an extent. I do have a lot of questions in terms of her role as district attorney, and obviously she was very tough on black people. Really, she wasn't even really tough on criminals. She was kind of it was kind of leaning toward one side. I mean, she was really sort of tough on blacks. If you look at the convictions and the actual crimes that were committed in terms of who was convicted and why, it's kind of crazy. But we do have to be honest here. I think that, and this is just my opinion, but I think that the Democratic Party, deep down, it's kind of desperate. I think that they're kind of desperate. They kind of really want to win. I think that they're kind of just looking for any sort of way to beat Trump. Because even like today with the speech that it was their first speech, I guess, on their campaign trail since he announced his running mate, and it was live on Facebook and the whole deal. So it was about a 40-minute speech. And Joe Biden, by the way, he did speak for a solid 6 minutes. I mean, it was like 5 minutes and 58 seconds. It was a solid 6 minutes. Hey, but he spoke, and he got a lot of sentences out, and he sounded pretty good for 6 minutes. But it wasn't meant for him to speak. He was introducing his running mate, and Kamala spoke for the majority of the time, and that's what it was meant for. So, I think that they're kind of desperate, and I say that because Kamala Harris, she does excite a lot of voters. I think she excites even a lot of the swing voters, because believe it or not, the more people don't like Trump's rhetoric, but the more things are starting to come out, Trump has done a lot of things that he said he was going to do. And I think there's a lot of people that are leaning toward that as well too. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm surprised, man. Like people, there's a lot of people that I'm surprised are planning on voting for Trump. And you at some point you do have to look at, okay, when are we going to just stop bashing Trump and start actually talking about some policy? And I didn't really expect, I mean, they were just announcing the running mate today, so I didn't expect them to talk about policy or go deep into planning or anything like that. But they didn't really talk about anything that they plan on doing together. It was more so just, Trump has been divisive. Trump did this, Trump did that. We're going to bring the country together. That sort of rhetoric.
Not talking about policy during a campaign is a trend that started at the same time social media started. So they will spend more time bashing each other and telling us what each other won't do, and less time telling us what they will do. Because honestly, if they don't make promises during their campaign, then they can't break promises during their time in office. So be prepared for that to be a growing trend. Glenn, I'm going to ask you to speak for all minorities because you're the only one on the show.
Well, thank you.
I just, you've been nominated. We voted. We voted, and you were the minority when we voted.
Well, black people are a monolith, so.
Look, in all jokes aside, this is a serious question. Do you think it undercuts her credibility at all that Biden came out early on and basically said he was going to choose a woman of color to be his running mate well before he announced who it was? Do you think that because he built a mold first, that whether it took shock and awe away from the nominee, whether there was the moment that she should have had to be nominated was that makes sense because we all knew it was going to be a woman of color and it was going to be one of these three people. Do you think that hurt and undercut her credibility for the position as the best person available? Because most people want, when you're choosing a VP nominee, for it to be the best person available, not the one who fits these check boxes. As a matter of fact, we have things like affirmative action, and we call people racists and sexist if they were to do things like this in other walks of life. So my question is, does it undercut her in this world right now, or does it not take anything away? And Kenny, you're cutting the same question after Glenn.
Well, that's a great question, and it's funny that you ask it because the minute that he announced it, I literally said exactly that. I said, why would he say that? Why wouldn't he just make, the announcement of who his running mate is going to be, and then allow the shock value of it being an African-American woman or whatever he decides to go with, to really kind of, take fold and, kind of sync with Americans. I do think it took away from the credibility, and I think it did a few things actually, but taking away from the credibility, not really necessarily from Kamala Harris, but just from the position as a whole, no matter who you would have picked, because now you're looking for somebody that, like you said, Lark, fits a mold or fits some sort of like a prototype, if you will. And, that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of this episode. I want to know that the best person for the job is the person that was chosen. And if it happens to be a Black person or an Asian person or whatever the case may be, I'm totally fine with that. But I think that there's a reason actually why Joe Biden did it. And I believe because he had went so long without making a public appearance. He had went over 120 days without making an online or a nationally televised appearance speaking at all. And there was a lot of speculation. And I think he was just trying to build some hype around his campaign. And especially in the climate and the backdrop of George Floyd and, all of that going on, I think that, hey, I'm going to elect a Black woman and I mean, it did work. I mean, he got a lot of people talking, including us. I mean, we did an entire segment on the potential candidates. So it did draw a lot of attention for that reason. But ultimately, I do think it threw a little salt on the opportunity, if you will.
King? Or
here's the
Queen.
I can't even make a joke.
So hold on. I'm prefacing because I ain't really calling you king ever. I have a very good friend of mine who is a business partner of mine whose name is King. We do a lot of webcasts and conference calls together lately. So I just instinctually saw your name because his name would have been on the screen. And I said, okay, King. And I realized as soon as I said it, no, not making that mistake in life. Mr. Beef, why don't you go ahead and give
the name? All right.
No.
So here's the thing. All right. I don't, it bothers me because I would have liked to see it come authentically. I'd like to see, you vet somebody and then bring up who they are. But this kind of leads me to two things. One, I just feel like Kamala Harris was in a position where she could have competed with Biden, and instead she sold out. She sold out, and her donors all gave the money to Biden, and her, and along with about I think it was three other candidates that were all ideologically kind of in alignment, and they all dumped their money into the white guy, and then knew that the come around was going to happen. Now, maybe it wasn't going to be her, but I think it was. I mean, she was the lead person for a while. I was thinking maybe they would go outside, but they didn't. It literally was a I pat your back, you pat mine. So that bothers me. Because I want to see people get things on their merit. But number two, I don't understand how this is not against the civil rights. Last time I checked, you can't hire somebody based on their sex. And he literally said that. So, I don't know what the rules are about that. But if I looked up the employment rules when it comes to hiring and firing people based on their sex, that is literally, and race, that's in there. So how can you possibly say that? That is absolutely sexist. It's absolutely racist. If somebody did that of any other race, if it was to a man, if I said, hey, I'm going to, no matter what, hire a white man, that would never fly. Never fly. Even if I said I was going to hire a Black man, no matter what, that would never fly with the feminine community. So I don't understand why anyone would stand behind this like this is the way to handle it. You want to hire somebody that's qualified and they happen to be a woman of Indian descent? Well, awesome to you. Like, hey, that's cool. Like, no problem at all. But I just want to see how this ends up turning out, because are we just all going to ignore the rules that we have in this country that you can't do that because it's a group that we're okay with? It's like, it's okay to be racist as long as you don't like white people. It's okay to be sexist as long as you don't like men. Like, that's a terrible precedent. So I'd like to hear Glenn's thoughts on that real quick. And
hold on. I'm going to point out that as a person who owns businesses, you should look into those laws. Just a thought. Just for you to say on this show, I don't really know the rules there.
No, I do.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking hyperbole.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I know the rules.
That's
Kenny
good.
definitely-
Because
Kenny
you
knows
own
the
a
rules.
business, you should know the rules. I will say this.
Definitely. Never even asked that. Never asked an age. Nothing.
I do have a serious question to ask about it, and is it an actual hired position? Because it's not really a paid position until it's an elected position. And so it does kind of create what are the rules for choosing a running mate? They're not going to be the same as employment rules because he's not her employer. And she's applying for a position with the federal government essentially. And he's choosing for her to come along. So it does bring up some interesting points as far as, but to your actual bigger point, I agree that it wasn't I don't mind her as a candidate, and I'm going to be very clear about that. Right. I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman of color being in a position of power. Not I'm a little bit awake, okay. But I did find it offensive to the position, and I was offended for her at this point that 3 months ago she was identified by a race and a sex before she was identified as a person. I found that weird because today we all just said
sex or gender. I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
It's all the same.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and we're back. That's not even the opening anymore. It's how we pull ourselves together. All right.
That's hilarious.
The next question I have to ask: does his age matter to her relevance in this campaign?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, Biden is old. It definitely matters for sure. And there was this rumor going around or this meme online saying that because her mother is Indian and her father is Jamaican, that if Biden were to pass, Nancy Pelosi would all of a sudden be next in line to take the presidency rather than Kamala Harris because she's somehow isn't an American citizen, even though she was born in Oakland, California. It's been debunked. It's not true. But yeah, she, absolutely. I think that, well, for one, Kamala Harris, and this is really kind of just going to go off topic here, but foreign policy and domestic policy. This is the boring stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But foreign policy, domestic policy, there's more positives to her being on the ticket than negatives. Although I do think the negatives they're not far behind. But in terms of foreign policy, domestic policy, for one, and we talked about it on the last show, she was the Attorney General for California. When she was the Attorney General for California, she got major wins. I'm sure you guys heard. Everybody knows she fought big banks and won somewhere to the tune of $20 billion for American citizens that fell victim to big bank mortgage fraud. So, she also, she's won several other things as well too. But there's a lot more positives to her being on the ticket than negatives. Also, with her being, she ran for the Department of Justice and won. For senator and won 3 times in California. So, it's kind of she did run the Department of Justice, but she's done a lot. And I don't know if you guys realize too, but the Department of Justice, the California Department of Justice, is the largest Department of Justice outside of the national DOJ.
I have heard that it's bigger than Alaska's. I don't know if you guys knew that. Kenny, go ahead. You needed to get a rebuttal in there. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, she was reelected to the Attorney General's office. She only won one election. She's only been in office since 2017, as far as being a senator is concerned. But he kind of lumped. Glennon ran two things together here. He said that the foreign policy and domestic policy. Now, she did do some domestic policy things that I don't think are bad, right? I'm for going after banks and some of the things that she did there as the Attorney General, but she doesn't have any foreign policy experience. So we'll see how that goes. I do think, being a senator, if she had been there for a longer period of time in California, I think that would have given her some I think there's definitely some connections that could be made that way, but she's going to be definitely learning on the fly there, which is fine because Biden, even though I disagree with his foreign policy, and I think that his foreign policy is really just him hooking people up with money. I think that he's going to have some problems there, but he is a foreign policy guy where she doesn't need to be that strong in that area. But I also, going back to the initial question asked, is that, of course, the age matters, because I don't know if anybody noticed today, but the first thing Biden did when he came out, his first praise of her in her introduction was that she's ready from day one, which I found kind of weird because, of course, you're picking a vice president. I've never heard somebody say they're going to be ready from day one. Like, does this dude expect to die day one? Like, that was a little shocking to me. I mean, I don't think most people go, you're going to hire a vice president. Eventually, they're going to be good enough to take over as president. So he made sure to point that out. He pointed out, how old he is and that we've got to be ready for something like this. So I don't know if this dude's on death's doorstep, but he certainly introed it that way when he was introducing her. So certainly a possibility. And he will be the oldest. If he wins, he'll be the oldest person to take the presidency in the history of the United States.
The only other people that take an incumbent to that position that are ready to take over day one is the Washington football team, right, Glenn? Because they're backup quarterback. That's how they draft, right?
Backup for the teams right. And being great.
It was my turn to drop the intro music on me. All right. The next thing
but really quick, I just wanted to touch on really quick because Kenny did mention that she didn't really have any foreign policy, and no, it's not one of her strong suits, but she does have foreign policy experience. I mean, even sitting. So for one, like we just talked about, she was sitting on the Senate. She's also sat on the Intelligence Committee, as well as the Homeland Security, as well as budget committees. So I mean, she does have a little bit of foreign policy, but yeah, it's Biden's strong suit, so she doesn't need to be like,
So I will say this, and Kenny's not going to like this because I'm going to lean a little left at this point, but I've leaned a little right once earlier. But she has a lot more elected official experience than one Mr. Donald Trump did before he took the office of the presidency. So she may not have a lot of experience, but some would say, and you would be one of them, that he's done fine learning on the job, and so she's ahead of that game.
Yeah, that's why I didn't.
Yeah, and so it's not a positive, but it's certainly not a negative, especially if she's as competent as everyone seems to think she is. I'm going to go into, we got about 20 minutes left. We've got, go ahead, guys. Feel free to throw your comments in. Especially if they're questions that can be thought-provoking conversation starters and not just indictments on Miss Harris.
Or throw up some indictments too.
Throw up some indictments.
We got a couple there. We're going to touch them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see there's a couple up in here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lark. Throw a couple up there.
I'm not touching them. You all want to touch them?
Lark is totally neutral, guys.
I'm
totally
so
neutral.
Purple. I am so bright violet right now.
Which is funny that I'm wearing blue and Glennon's wearing red.
Serious question though. The right has, about 15 seconds after she was announced as the nominee, what little bit of internet coverage we can get, the right can get, without it being blocked by Google, YouTube, whatever, started showing all of the things that she said about Biden during their campaign head to head. It's going to show up in a Trump super PAC commercial
for sure.
Or if it hasn't already, right?
Already.
So how much do you think that's going to hurt their campaign? Because again, will that keep people from wanting to show up to vote? Because the swing voter who is an undecided voter right now,
zero.
You don't think neither one of you think it's going to have any effect?
It's not going to have any effect. I mean, look at Trump. I mean, Trump at one point was a Democrat. I mean, at one point he had nothing but praises to say for Hillary. I mean, look at all of his interviews back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I mean, he loved Hillary. So, it was brought up. It was brought up during his 2016 campaign. It was brought up. I mean, all the stuff that it was all brought up. It was all in the scrutiny. It didn't matter one bit. So I don't think it's going to hurt them at all either.
So you don't think it's going to, and the question really was going to be, do you think it's going to keep people from showing up to so people passionately wanted Barack Obama to win the presidency. And I'm going to say especially in the minority community, but in the minority community, they passionately wanted to be a part of history. I mean, I don't even care if they didn't like him, which, you know, he was a very good president in the beginning. I didn't have any problems with him until my healthcare bills tripled, right? So I'm not going to pretend I didn't like the dude. I supported him right up until the day I got the 300% increase on health insurance. Okay. So, you know, going up until that point, but the African American community said, or the Black community said, I am showing up to vote for this person. There was nothing stopping them. Then we get to the Hillary versus Trump election. And I've had some of my minority friends in the stand-up comedy world have told me straight up, you know, the polling data said Hillary was just going to win. It was going to be a landslide. It wasn't going to be close. I wasn't motivated to show up and vote. So a lot of minorities didn't show up and vote. And now everyone is on this like complete anti-Trump, forget that dude, the BLM movement and everything about it. We're going to see a different election. We're going to see a different turnout in this election. The question is, does everything that she said bad about him that's going to constantly get played, is that going to cause the minorities pause to say, maybe I'm not passionately supporting him so much that I'm going to give up doing X, Y, and Z to show up and vote? That's really my question. I understand that if I ask a minority in downtown Philadelphia who they're voting for, the odds are they're going to tell me they're voting for Biden. But when it comes down to it, and they have to get to the polls on a rainy day, does Biden with Harris motivate them to go out there if all they've been seeing is Harris trashing Biden on television? I almost called you King again. Kenny, go ahead.
All right. So as I said earlier, since I don't believe that she motivates the Black voter the same way that Obama had people really motivated, I don't think. I think his hope is, you know, Biden's hope is that Kamala is able to do that. I don't think she does that. I don't think all of a sudden the Black community is going to beat down the walls to try to come and make sure that they don't miss voting that day. That's what my point was earlier. So I don't think this bothers it at all. I don't think it makes one difference. I think she's a base person. I think people who were anti-Trump would like her, and they're going to go to the polls and vote for Biden. But I think that the people who Trump had swing for him when the election happened, and for the people who said, you know what, I don't really like Hillary, I'm not just voting against Trump, I'll just skip it. Those people, I don't see them moving for her. I don't think they were going to, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to see these commercials, and now they're not. I just don't think she does much for them. I really don't. So we'll see. But Trump, you know, one of the things that we haven't said here is that Trump's numbers in the Black community have gone up. So are these people going to the people who have kind of switched sides and gone, oh, you know what? I like what Trump could do with the economy. I think that he's the better choice now. I didn't like him before. I like him now. They're going to switch back because of Kamala Harris? I don't think so. And so I just don't think it makes that big difference. Plus, most people who are going to vote who are into the politics of it, I mean, they know this is the game. Everybody talks about their own people. And then a month later, they're like, yeah, I love this person. And then, you know, they get put on their campaign and all these other things. So it's very normal. I don't ever buy into that stuff.
Yeah, Lark, I'm glad that you actually brought it up, because I brought it up in the last episode, literally, in terms of the polling and what happens with polls. And just like in 2016, the polling pretty much said that Hillary was going to win by a landslide. And obviously that wasn't the case. And so now we've been seeing polls of, I think at one point they had Biden up 15 points, and it's constantly been dwindling. I think the last I checked, it was at like 3 points. Biden was up by like 3 or 4 points. It wasn't much. But what they actually, in my opinion, I think what they were trying to do is get more people to turn out for Trump. They were trying to say that Biden was up all these points, and now, you know, and therefore, just like they were saying Hillary was up all these points, and then people end up turning up for Trump because, you know, they're scared or whatever the case may be. And that's exactly what I think happened. And in terms of Black people not showing up to the polls because they do think that Biden was up by this astronomical amount of votes or a percentage, Same thing with the Hillary case. That makes perfect sense. You know, hey, he's up. He's gonna do it. You know, I don't need to go. It's raining today. I got kids or whatever their excuse may be for the day, for sure. But the real question is Kamala going to excite voters? Is she going to excite voters? I think she will excite voters, but it is a little too early to tell. I know Kenny said that he didn't think that she was going to do that. On the surface, she has everything. She has all the qualities, especially with the way that she speaks. She can certainly excite voters. What's going to be the deciding factor is her speeches and what she decides to talk about and how she draws up the narrative of her VP run. I mean, she's got a lot of things that she can say. Her and Biden, they've both gone through a lot of things. I mean, they got Beau Biden, which they kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but you know, they've overcome adversity and things like that too. They can make it like they can sort of do this whole like little maybe family sort of narrative, overcoming adversity sort of narrative. I mean, there's a lot of things, you know, bringing the people together, unifying the country. There's a lot of ways that they can, you know, sort of put this thing out there and swing this thing. But yeah, I definitely think that she has the ability to excite people. Whether or not she's going to do that, this is the thing. If she comes out with some sort of because Michelle Obama wrote awesome speeches. If she can put together some Michelle Obama speeches and deliver them with that Kamala Harris sort of invigorating charm that she has, that sort of excitement that she brings naturally on stage, yeah, I think she'll definitely excite people, and people are going to go to the polls anyway just because she's the first Black woman.
So you bring up Michelle Obama. And after the speech Michelle Obama gave during Hillary's campaign, which by and large had more people excited than anything Hillary ever said, which also may have been a big mistake in that part, because Michelle wasn't on the ticket, and I felt like Michelle actually would have excited people, and Michelle would have had a better shot at winning, and then they could have just wrote out 16 years in the White House, and just handing it off, right? But honestly, I believed. At the time when I heard Biden was running and he picked, you know, Black female was going to be his running mate, I literally thought if he chooses Michelle Obama, it's a wrap and it's over. And you could just call the election there, because that would have excited far more people than the excitement I feel like Miss Harris is getting. Kenny, if I keep talking and you can't talk, I mean, I could mute you and you might just explode. Go ahead, Kenny. I could see you trying to get a word in. Go ahead.
He's turning red.
Well, here's the thing, right? If she could do all those things, she would not be the vice presidential nominee. She's the vice presidential nominee because she failed epically poorly at giving speeches. She had her opportunity. She had a very good, I would even say a great debate. And her numbers spiked through the roof. I literally have my cousin calling me saying she's going to be the next president of the United States. And then she fell flat on her face. And she could not generate excitement because she started pandering, and people didn't want to see that. When she was raw and real in the debate, she was hot. And then once she became the front runner, she curled up like somebody getting jumped in a fight. Now, can she bring that back? Possibly, because I mean, to see that spark, I like watching debates. She killed that debate.
Hey, well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, we're going to see it October 7th. That's the first vice presidential debate. Come on. I mean, you really think Mike Pence doesn't want it with Kamala Harris? I'll
be honest. I've never met a white man that wanted to fight a Black woman. That's just...
No,
I've never met one. I want to fight a Black woman, bro. I ain't met a Black man.
Not out
well, he couldn't answer that one. Neither can I. But we can speak for our own selves.
No trouble.
I think I don't necessarily disagree with you, Glenn. I think Mike Pence is very de-escalating now, and so I think in the debates, Biden just better not get smoked. Because if he gets smoked, no one's going to watch the vice president. It's got to be close enough that then you watch the vice president, because there are people, and I think maybe us three included. I mean, do any of us really think that Biden's going to, if he wins, he's going to make it 4 years? Like, if I'm a betting man, I'll bet you the Vegas odds, and I'm sure they have odds for everything. I'll bet you the odds are probably more that he doesn't make it. So people are going to look at that with how old he is. And he did do a good job of reading the teleprompter today. I gotta give it up to him because I'm critical when he loafs off. I just jammed my foot.
He even had some impromptu moments in there. But that weren't on the teleprompter. He threw a little personality in there. Give him some props.
Hey,
I'm
he
staying
did a
purple.
good job today.
I'm staying purple.
He did a good job today. But I want to see those debates, and I think more people are going to focus on those debates. But I do think more people will watch because he did pick Kamala Harris. I think more people will watch the vice presidential thing. But really, at the end of the day, if she wins and then Trump smokes Biden in his debates, Trump's still going to win. But then it definitely puts her in a position where she's on the platform in the future. So she needs at least a draw out of Biden or a little bit of a loss, and then she's really got to kill it. And I just don't know that Pence is going to engage enough for her to get as pumped as she did. But Biden tried not to engage, and that's where she got the big win from. She actually had problems when what was the lady from Hawaii when she became the front runner, and the lady from Hawaii, come on, help me
Tulsi
out.
Gabbard.
Thank you. Tulsi Gabbard started going at her, and then all of a sudden she was kind of in a spot. So maybe she'll do really well against Mike
I will
Pence
say
that way.
I will say this: the undercard, if you will, in the VP debate is far more interesting to me because I have said from day one that I thought Mike Pence was a much better politician than Donald Trump. Because he was a politician and had previous experience. Just throw your phone anywhere, Glenn. It's fine. We
I know, right? Camera just keeps like it's all over the place today.
He didn't get the intro.
It's off the rails. Episode 29, one to forget.
Nah, man, this is pretty good. But no, Mike Pence. He's likable. Mike Pence is a likable guy. I think he has garnered some enemies just because he's in the Trump administration, and he looks like an asshole when he sits behind Trump and he's clapping as Trump is telling bold-faced lies. And it hasn't happened recently, but it doesn't look good. And I think that he's definitely going to get smoked by Kamala Harris. The other part to it, though, is that Joe Biden, because let's be honest, arguing, debating, it's a skill. I mean, Donald Trump is good at it. And Joe Biden can beat Trump in a debate if he sticks to the facts. I mean, as long as because Donald Trump has told so many lies about so many things on tape that if he just sticks to broad facts that Trump really can't dispute, I think that he's going to at least be able to hang in there. But Trump's just good with the little quips and rebuttal jabs and stuff like that. He's just an asshole.
Trump is really good at being condescending when it comes to those conversations. And it's one of the reasons so many people love him and so many people hate him. He has earned both sentiments from both sides of the aisle. And quite honestly, I believe he embraces them. And he doesn't go on stage. He doesn't go on Twitter to be political. He doesn't go on there to be presidential. He almost goes on there to be controversial. And he succeeds every time. So
he is savage level 100. And he makes debates must watch, because if Biden slips up and almost falls asleep, Trump is going to let the world know. It will not be good.
I will let you falling asleep over there, boy. You might want to splash dip your fingers in that glass of water and splash some water in your face.
Trump's just got to avoid drinking. I don't want to see this ever.
Yeah, Trump's got to not
do that.
Stay off of them ramps.
All right, final word. We got 3 minutes left. Kenny, I'm going to go to you for your final word first, and then I'm going to go to Glenn. So anything else you want to get off your chest about Miss Harris? I ain't saying the name. You got 90 seconds. Here we go. Ready, go.
First of all, I just want to let everybody know thanks for watching the show. A couple things I did want to speak up on. I saw in the, at the end of the day, there's some things I really don't like about Kamala Harris. What she did as an AG, Jose Diaz spent 9 years in jail, paroled. 19 years later it took him, but he kept fighting for his conviction to get overturned. It did get overturned. And when it got overturned, her office and the district attorney continued to make him file as a sexual offender, even though he was found not guilty. And it took an extra 2 years for him to get off that registry because her office pressed it. Maurice Caldwell, very similar. She made him spend an extra 4 years in jail after knowing that he was innocent. Jamal Truelove, look him up on Twitter. He talks about it. He's a Bernie guy, but he spent 6 years in jail for a crime he did not commit. And then 4 extra years based on the amount of time that the district or this Attorney General's office knew that he was innocent. But then they fought him on that. They fought him on getting paid for spending 6 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. And they purposely had people lie about the witnesses. And her office got criticism for that. So I just hope that America does not forget that, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you want police reforms and then this is the person you're going to put in office. And that's all I got for you tonight.
Glenn, 90 seconds. You're on.
Yeah, Kenny, man, that was pretty solid. I got to give it to you because you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, I love the fact that there's an African-American woman on the ticket, on the national ticket. She has all the accolades. I mean, she's the first African-American many things. So she's definitely worked and she is well deserving of it. But I just can't overlook her toughness on really black. She's locked up more blacks. I mean, her and Biden combined have locked up more black people than the Reagan era, the war on drugs combined. I mean, it's kind of hard to really get to her accolades for me as a black man, knowing what she did as a state's attorney. So it's tough. I try not to make it a dichotomy or a right or a wrong thing. And obviously people are going to have smudges in their careers and blemishes on their resumes and things like that. I would say this is a little bit more than a blemish, especially when teamed up with someone like Joe Biden. And again, it's just really tough because for someone like me, I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do about it. If anybody else is in the same boat, feel free to drop a comment. We will be getting to all your comments. We will be answering all your questions. We have been getting some emails. Continue to send your emails in. Contra-Dictions.us@gmail.com. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here with us tonight, guys. Oh, and really quick before I go, I'm totally cool with the Washington Redskins name change. I don't like the fact that they're the football team. I think they'll come up with something better. But I just wanted to be clear that I'm not wearing this for some sort of statement or to make some sort of.
You said they'll come up with something better than the football team.
They have to.
Anything is better than calling yourselves the football team. All right, let me get my final word in. All right, here we go. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for letting me be a part of your subculture and the group of people that like to hang out with Contra-Dictions during the week. It's always an honor to guest host for my friend Kenny. November 4th, when it comes, please remember that you are voting for someone. You are not voting against someone. Every vote you cast is putting a person in a job to represent you and to represent the public. Yeah, you can hate another person as much as you want, but you have to make sure that the person you are going to try to help put in office is going to represent you, represent what is best for your family, and represent what is right for everyone in your community. Showing up to a protest is great, but using the one that was built into our United States Constitution and your right to vote is one that people fought long and hard to make sure that you had. Make sure you're using that to speak the loudest and make the changes you want to see in your community. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys on an episode soon. Peace.